Welcome to Preparing for the Unexpected. Today we're going to talk about mental health crises and calls made to first responders based on an article recently with Signal Cleveland, published on February 3rd, about something called Tanisha's Law. Now, Tanisha Anderson was a 37-year-old woman who died in police custody due to a mental health issue back in 2014. City Council has now passed this law where first responders, like police in this example, should be accompanied by a mental health expert for these mental health calls. And I invited today's guest, Treena Reilkoff. Treena, welcome back.
Thanks. Glad to be back.
To talk about this today. So, Treena, I wanted to get your thoughts on this because we've touched on this in the past, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. It's a part of our regular conversation about proactive preparedness.
So, what are your thoughts about Tanisha's law, about first responders having a mental health expert accompany them on these kinds of calls?
I think it's a brilliant new law, but I also know it is a universal precaution. And I have been in that role in that crisis call, accompanying with police in the role of clinical mental health social worker way back in the day when I was working at a mental health intake for a hospital. So it is, I think, moving forward, it's proactive preparedness. It is needed, I think, not just locally there, but it should be a universal precaution around the world.
Well, that was actually going to be a question. Is this something that we should do across the board, not just as this example is a law in Cleveland, but should this be broader? Because I personally see it as something that could help many police forces or firefighters or anybody
Yeah.
finding themselves in this kind of situation.
Right. So when you think of the first responders of police and firefighters, when they show up, they have a duty, they're wearing a uniform. We're all human. So just imagine when you're driving and the police car is just pulls up behind you, even though you're obeying the law and you're driving fine, all of a sudden you're stressed. All of a sudden, whether it's real or not, the perceived or threat is real. You are now experiencing the threat response. So when you look at people who have mental health conditions, and if only the police show up, their body reacts to the threat response before they think, and they don't see the person in the uniform, they see the uniform. And what does the uniform represent? It represents power over, control, loss of choice. And again, we don't know anybody's historical or intergenerational history. We don't know their involvement with the law or with police. So they automatically go into a heightened potential threat response when they see the uniform show up. When you have somebody who's not in uniform and has clinical crisis intervention experience, even how they show up, the presence, and it's not a hierarchical lead of police or the clinical social worker mental health, it's working in sequence with the ununiformed person who's got mental health experience in crisis de-escalation, creating that environmental, situationally aware calmness. And then the police in the uniform is also providing that situationally aware dynamic static security. And again, it's not looking at as always, because there's always, you got to do the assessment of threat, potential weapons, but anything can be a weapon as well. But it's looking at each case and the information that comes in when the call is in.
So this law, Tanisha's law, and the way it's been put in, can really benefit police, the social worker to help someone in need, and help the person who needs, some I don't want to say bullied or feel like they're being attacked by police, and I
Yep.
don't mean it that way, but someone in crisis would feel that way based on what you're saying. So there's benefits to all
Yeah.
three parties here, isn't there?
Yeah. So when you're looking what you just described, it's not that bullied, it's looking at when you're prepared for that crisis response, you're also coming in with a trauma-informed lens. So it's also not risk mitigation, but it's trauma-informed. And when you come in with a trauma-informed lens integrated into the crisis response and the risk mitigation, you're looking at stabilizing the threat first, stabilizing the adrenal management. We're all human. we all go into that threat response. So if that individual with mental health concerns is in that threat response, they're reacting through our physiology, not through their cognitive. So then the social worker or the mental health nurse can stabilize, establish safety because you have a deeper understanding of the behavioral cues where the police, again, in sequencing and support, they are also providing the dynamic static security. They're also watching for behavioral cues of increase of threat of potential weapons or, physical altercations. So being aware of that situational awareness, your dynamics of being trained in how to position yourself, distance, cadence, tone of voice, the words you choose. So there's a lot of training because police have a lot of training as well, but when you have that specialist in understanding high risk mental health behaviors, you come in with a different lens. So, and I'm also speaking, having my first job ever in high school and university was working in a psychiatric institution as a nurse's aide, psychiatric nurse's aide. So I've had to assess threats of high risk, complex, when they might physically attack me. I have worked in a clinical position where an unmedicated schizophrenic had his voices threatening to kill me. And I was able to speak with him and communicate in a manner that made him have feel safe, had choice and voice in how we were going to manage it, kept myself safe, but got the resources of the security safety involved, but gave this individual the choice and empowered of how he was going to get to safety without even knowing he was going to safety because we separated, as he called it, his mental health voices from who he was as a person. And the key thing there, a psychiatrist had just seen him 30 minutes before, and the psychiatrist asked him, are you having any auditory hallucinations or any visual hallucinations? He said no, because in his understanding of language, he was just having his mental health voices who are a part of who he is. So we were able, through communication choice of the words I used, empowering him in how we discussed who he was, and he was making his own choices. And the mental health voices were the voices, but it was not who he was. And
And I
so
think,
if you
go ahead.
approach that, sorry, with a uniform on, we're all human. You see the uniform first, which creates that threat response.
And I was actually going to just go there with the uniform officers or firefighters. They're trained in what
Yeah.
they need to do, as you pointed out, but it takes a little bit of stress off of them to allow
Mhm.
someone else who has the speciality of mental health crises and prevention and helping them out, helping out the person in need, to allow them to focus where their
Yeah.
training really does need to focus, and let the mental health expert do what they need to do rather than showing up in a position to do something they're not trained to do, which then doesn't help anybody in the end. And
Yeah.
we've unfortunately seen what happens. And Tanisha's law is one of those examples. So I think it really helps people play to their strengths here.
Yeah. And when you look, it's not again hierarchical, it's a team. So it's that extra set of eyes for safety security. So if it does escalate quickly, and knowing like the mental health professional also needs to be trained in situational awareness and that ability of how to position themselves, which most crisis intervention workers are. But if it escalates quickly, the police are there to do their job in the containment in a safe manner that preserves the dignity of the person. And that's what we're talking about as well with individuals with mental health, preserving their dignity in the process of helping them get the support they need.
I can see this law, or at least the framework of this law, being expanded a little bit more, not
Mhm.
just in someone at home who police have to go see type thing. I can see this
Yeah,
a little bit more uh, accepting for people who are maybe suffering, to know that there are people out there now that are
yeah,
maybe even more visible because they are, you know, moving around the neighborhood, so to speak. So I can see it helping people out a lot more.
yeah. And it could even be too like including that when the call comes in for the request for the wellness check is what are the questions asked? So there's more information to assess whether there's threat of potential weapons or is there, other people in the apartment, in the house, where is the location of the person where you're going to do the wellness check, right? Is it an individual house? Is it in a complex apartment building where, the gangs run the environment? So asking more questions, even in the call of to get more information of what is the dynamic and static environmental context, so that the people going in are more informed of who might go in first, and even who knocks on the door. Is it the police first, or is it the crisis intervention mental health specialist first? Or do they stand side by side when they knock and somebody is looking through the peephole, but they can see both of them together? Who, having this preparation of the conversation, who's going to speak first about the wellness? Because remember, again, we're humans, so our brains see and respond before our mind starts processing. So if the uniform's there, that threat, right? And all we have to do is visualize what it feels like. We've all felt it when we're driving, and then all of a sudden that police car comes up behind us, and we know we're not doing nothing wrong, but our hyper vigilance, our adrenals kick in, the dopamine, the stress happens
Yeah.
because we're like, did I do anything? We start questioning ourselves, and it's only through that visual context of a police car.
Yeah. It's a better leverage of the resources we have to be
Mhm.
effective where everyone helps. And then situations like Tanisha Anderson don't happen again. Do you have any
No.
final thoughts that you'd like to share on this?
I think just that, recognizing how the world has changed and there is no checky box solution. It's we can create psychological and psychosocial health and safety when we take that time to reassess what is going on now. Are our policies, processes up to date? And when we practice what is in our written material, the tabletop exercises, we need to involve everybody at every level for the tabletop exercises. So it becomes that ingrained habitual response of how do you naturally assess who's going to speak first, who's going to stand first, working in unity, and it's not a competition.
Right.
We're working in collaboration as a team to help support everybody because you don't know when it might be you, your family member, a friend, somebody at work who has that mental health crisis, and you want to receive and see somebody be responded to with dignity.
And I think on that note, we've come to the episode. Treena, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on this today, and
Always a
Tanisha as
pleasure.
well.
Always a pleasure. And all we can do is, everything you're doing to help educate, and we move forward and we upskill.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.